Hey, what is going on? It is me. It is Shy. Yeah, Saturday, February 19th. Sorry, I don't know what that sound was. Saturday, February 19th, 2022. February is steamrolling along, and I took a break in February. Took a break away from recording these bio videos, but I'm your bio guy, trademark, so I want to keep doing this and keep it rolling. I just needed to take care of a few things, but consistency is very important to the successes of life, and therefore I am now again moving forward full swing, and I will continue to do so, making videos for you and making videos for everybody, so that we can one day understand the processes of eternal life and the pathway to get to the process of allowing eternal life to be a thing that humans can recognize in a few years. Anyway, so let's go way back into the basics of bio. I have been studying for the last few days cell junctions, and cell junctions are super interesting. Mostly, they serve so many different kinds of functions. In epithelial cells in the body, they allow for the flexion of connected cells so that they may resist abrasive forces, they may resist pressure build up within the structures that they surround, and that they allow for transport of substances between cells, whether it be epithelial or otherwise. So junctions, I'm not going to go into the other junctions, but there are several junctions that can form between cells in organisms, and the junctions differ from groups of organisms. For example, vertebrates have one kind of junction, invertebrates have another kind of junction, plants have other kinds of junctions, but what you should know is that cells communicate through these junctions, and they also support each other through these junctions. So the one type of junction that I'm going to focus on today is the so-called gap junction. And gap junctions exist in virtually all vertebrates, all vertebrates. All living things have some kind of junction, and this is a close-up view of what a gap junction looks like. Are basically these tunnel-like structures that permeate the cell membranes of two cells or multiple cells, but they permeate the cell membranes in this picture of two cells that are linked together. Each cell's gap junction, each half, this part here and this part here, form what's called a hemichannel, and this part here and this part here are a hemichannel, and when they connect to each other, they form what's called a gap junction channel. So these gap junction channels, this looks like this because these individual cylinders represent a protein called connexin, and connexin is this is a closer view of it. It's a transmembrane protein, which is specially designed for this type of transport. And so when I talk about transport, you should know that this is actual true cellular transport, in the sense that these two cells are different. In your basic cell biology, you've probably heard of a term that sticks out in your head because it kind of rolls off the tongue, called plasmodesmata. Plasmodesmata is a similar kind of thing, but not the same at all. It's a similar kind of thing in plant cells, and it's something that permeates the cell wall and the cell membrane, and it allows essentially plant cells to kind of, in a way, be like a little bit of a monocell, in that the plant cells are actually sharing their internal organelles and their internal cytosol. It's like a conjoined twin in a way, and there is material flowing from one cell to another. So this channel is not exactly a channel in the sense where in the gap junctions the two cells have to link together and allow for transport of molecules through, and these two cells don't share cytoplasm. So organelles don't transfer between these cells. So right, and then one thing we have to know is that like why so what kind of cellular transports occur here, right? So the most popular kind are the most well-known kind are for RNA transport between cells. Cells can so if a cell needs to transfer RNA to another cell for various reasons, right? The cell cannot do it imagine if this extracellular space uh, is accessible. The cell can't send RNA to another cell through this extracellular space without the RNA potentially undergoing some damage, right? So um, and also the RNA can't really enter the plasma cell barrier normally, right? This phospholipid bilayer, because the it's the phospholipid bilayer is negatively charged, and it's essentially preventing uh, the RNA, which is also negatively charged to remember the phosphate backbone of an RNA is negatively charged from penetrating this cell barrier. So the RNA will just be floating out here in the cytosolic space, retaining damage and not being able to enter. So in order to satisfy both requirements, this junction forms a protective channel between cells so that RNA exchange can happen. What else goes on here? Besides RNA exchange, we also have ionic exchange, right? So gap junctions are very prevalent in cardiac muscle cells. They're also prevalent in neural tissue. They're prevalent in any cells that need to be electrically stimulated through calcium ion exchange, sodium ion exchange. If you remember, in one of my previous videos, I talked about the synapses of neurotransmitters, and the synapses, the synapses release their neurotransmitters endosomes. The neurotransmitters are packaged in endosomes, which are break down when calcium enters the neurotransmitter, and then or enters the synapse, and then the neurotransmitters are released into the synaptic space. So that's electrical stimulation, which allows for action potential to occur. This is like a better example, and so like even well, actually, this is like right, like an example of like the connexon that occurs in ion exchange between two synapses. So besides neurotransmitters, this is like a direct interface between these two cells, postsynaptic and presynaptic neurons, which generate an action potential directly based on ion exchange. So again, different types of neurons may have neurotransmitters, different types may have gap junctions, and so on and so forth. So yeah, that's basically what the other main use. And then the most interesting use to me personally of these gap junctions is the control of one cell's activity by another cell. So the real example of this is that, like, say a cell, like a virus, is infecting the body, right? And I guess maybe somehow the cells know that the T cells and the killer T cells and other and antibodies won't be able to attack this virus in time, and so what they will do is that through these gap junctions, they will send cytokines. Remember, cytokines are signaling molecules, signaling ligands, to another cell that they're connected to, and tell the cell to essentially commit suicide, which is pretty dark. But it's the way the body works. It's the lesser gets sacrificed for the fewer. So basically, the virus will no longer be able to use that second cell as a reservoir to create more viri, and I assume the other cell kills itself. This initiating cell kills itself. The cell that initiated apoptosis in the second cell. If not, then that's pretty messed up, honestly. Maybe there are situations when the initiating cell, apoptotic initiation cell, doesn't kill itself, and that would be a little messed up. Or maybe it's biologically necessary. Anyway, you can't treat cells as living as people, right? They don't have morality, right? But let's go, and this is just another, this is gap junctions in cardiac muscle. Gap junctions occur, you see, in cardiac muscles. There's also this action potential that's generated, and it's very much needed there. And finally, last thing I want to do is leave off with something fun today, and that would be this example of what's called cytoplasmic streaming. So cytoplasmic streaming is basically, remember how I said plasmodesmata in plant cells are sort of an equivalent to gap junctions in animal cells, except that they create a monocell that shares cytoplasm. So that sharing of cytoplasm causes movement and influx of cytoplasm, which is called cytoplasmic streaming. And as you can see, these organelles, these chlorophylls and other things within these plant cells kind of float around. These are plant cells surrounded by cell walls, float around, and they can leak into, given that they're small enough, they can leak into other adjacent plant cells that have channels, that have these plasmodesmata channels, right? And if you see, I believe I have the other video from a higher viewpoint of the cytoplasmic streaming that occurs, and probably you can't see this with the naked eye, but I don't know, maybe you can kind of sense this activity is happening in plant cells when you touch a leaf or something. So that's it. The next time I'll be going into more cellular processes. I might revisit those other junctions. There's really important ones called hemidesmosomes, which I wrote a Medium article on actually, and there are desmosomes and tight junctions and adherins, which all connect to connective tissue within a cell, which allows for the transport of molecules, selectively permeable transport of molecules between cells. Wow. No. And that's it. So, like, I guess that's my cue to stop. It's a 12-minute video already. So with that, I will see you next time, and keep it bio. All right.